Okay. Well, I'm Maril, for those of you who don't know me, also known as She Who Hacks. And I only say that because a lot of people greet me by my handle in person, which is weird, but fun. And I've only been working in cybersecurity for about almost 4 years, and I've been in OffSec for about 3.5 of that. I started pen testing almost immediately. So I used to work as a pen tester, and then I was on the red team at Zoom with like and all them. And then I left red teaming to start purple team programs, which is what I do now. So,
ooh, fancy.
now I work for.
I'm gonna tack on to the intro with also the Cyber Queen and the host of the Cyber Queens podcast, and also getting into the nonprofit space, right, with Teach Kids Tech.
Yep. Currently keeper of Amber Sanity on multiple fronts. So I brought her onto my podcast, and she brought me onto her nonprofit. So yeah, we're just trying to get more kids interested in tech. We're trying to get kids in underserved community into tech. We're also trying to get more women and minorities into tech and cyber. So we're really trying to address like the skill shortage we have and the diversity problem that we have on multiple fronts, doing what we can. And listen, I know the branding is really on point, but it's because it was aimed at Gen Zers. Okay, it's just that Gen Zers don't consume our content as much as people who already work in cyber consume our content.
No, that was one of my first questions. How do you get the Cyber Queen's name? I feel like that's such an awesome like title to give yourself and then to live up to it. I just think that's so cool.
Pretty presumptuous. I was like, are people gonna think we're assholes because we were gonna go with like cyber divas, like DFIR diva? And I was like, I don't know. But really we did it because, it's aimed at like women and LGBTQ minorities, right? And so like everyone over there is a queen, and so we just thought it would be really fun branding. And the name was available and it's catchy, which is mostly what led to that. So
love it.
I do all the branding, so that's on me.
Oh yeah, no, that's the easiest way to do it. It's just run your own branding. When we let the editor try to run the branding, then it just gets wild.
So you guys have an editor, like officially, like an official editor?
Yeah. No, we don't pay him.
We don't pay.
It's about as real as our contract with him. So
he's getting paid in experience. Okay, it's very valuable.
He gets to listen to our valuable knowledge twice, both live and then later on during the editing process.
When he edits the episode.
Poor guy.
Usually when he's complaining.
He just has to edit so much of the stupid stuff we say. Like, he's a godsend.
I literally constantly, I love cussing. By the way, can we cuss on this podcast?
Of course.
100%. Yeah.
100%.
Great. I love like just being who we are and speaking how we speak. But when people come on my podcast, because I'm actually trying to get it served to like people in college and high school, I'm like, you can't cuss on this podcast because I have to edit it out, or Apple Podcasts will like label it as explicit and not serve it to anyone with a user profile under the age of like 17. I'm like, stop. So I like have every time someone's like, fuck this shit, I'm like, damn it.
Maybe that's a marketing angle for this podcast. Maybe we just frame it as explicit content and we get a different audience to the table.
Highly explicit cyber idiots spin-off podcast.
calling it how it is, Well, I think that's a thing too, right? Like most people just don't really want to call it as it is. They try to like beat around the bush, especially in most like cyber podcasts. It's like, well, Microsoft really didn't do anything wrong, and you're like, they left a glaring vulnerability open. Like, what do you mean they did nothing wrong?
Yeah, like you dropped the ball, you fucked up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which will probably bar us from future employment, not gonna lie, but
what's a great idea that we should revisit just for vintage time's sake? XP. Let's bring XP back for fun.
That's like how I got into cyber, like MS08067. That vulnerability is what like got me into like, this is what I want to do. Because past that, like I had no fucking like Linux didn't excite me. Let's be real, Linux isn't all that exciting. Like people are like, this is the greatest thing ever, and it's like, is it really?
We got a debate. We got a debate brewing. We're never gonna get to one question. We're just gonna.
You guys are gonna hate me, and maybe I should wait till we're on the recording to say this, but I actually have done very, very little Windows hacking in my career. I'm mostly a Mac OS. Yeah. So mostly all of like the endpoint hacking I've done is mostly Mac OS because it's Mac OS heavy. And also there's no AD in the environment whatsoever. It's all Okta provisioning. But even so, on my team, because we were a red team, right? So everyone had their specialty. I was the client side attack specialist, the social engineer, and the cloud pivot and escalate specialist. So I like literally have never needed to do very like graduated echelons of like Microsoft things. So I'm Linux core all the way.
That's pretty actually neat.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the move, right? You get to know one thing, you excel at it, and then you're never really going to know it all. But man, you find that one expertise, you're incredibly valuable.
Yeah, I'm part of the red team cabal. I don't know if you guys know what the red team.
I'm in the cabal too.
You're in the cabal too. Okay, there's like a Slack channel called the Red Team Cabal of like internal red teams from across orgs, and like Justin and Cedric and all these like Mac heavy red team guys just have like their whole like sub community going on. And I'm like,
That was my red team.
Yeah,
that was my red team.
awesome.
So yes, we are the Mac OS basically red team. And when we went and spoke at OBTS, there was like we all went to OBTS. Like there was 8 of us, and like 4 of us were giving talks on like Mac OS things. It's like I worked with all the Mac OS Beyoncés.
The Mac OS Beyonce. That is a title. That is a classic title. All right, that's going in the old handbook alongside emulated criminals and cyber vampire hunters. Like, yeah, that's pretty solid.
Is that a welcoming conference? Like, if we wanted to get into the Mac security space, if like I didn't have knowledge, is that like a place you could step in and learn something?
Oh, absolutely. Patrick Wardle runs it. Every single one of the talks is like jam-packed value left and right. Like there's only like 5 talks in a given day, and it's only a 2-day shindig. But it's called Objective by the Sea, OBTS. Obviously, a play on Objective C and not Objective C. And it's always held at the beach. So Patrick Wardle lives in Maui. So every other year it's hosted in Maui or a beach in Europe. Last year it was in Spain, in Barcelona. So it's a fun conference to be at just because we're all in Hawaii, usually drinking and partying on the beach and then learning about macOS things. But like they get some of like the biggest names in macOS hacking to go speak at it. So like Kat Self, they have the minor folks come in. You've got like Jamie, you've got Patrick Wardle, who's a macOS, again, Beyonce in his own right. Then you've got like Zorier and Justin Bowie, like all these folks. So it's just a ton of powerhouses. But like it's the only offensive macOS conference there is. And for those of us who don't do heavy Windows things, it was like the only place we really go to learn and hear about new CVEs and hear about how you emulated certain things and exploited certain things. And there's a lot of cell phone hacking as well, a lot of iOS hacking talks. So it's fun. It's really inclusive. It's a great little, it's a really intimate little conference, really like 150, 200 people in person, but it's a lot of fun.
We need to go just for the iOS hacking.
Yeah. I was gonna say that's right up your guys' alley.
Maril, we have 350 cell phones that we're doing some research on, and man, a lot of them are iOS, and it would be really nice to figure some of these out.
I feel like I'm
link you up with some people.
Yeah, please. Because I feel like I'm a pretty good, like, what do they call them? The Apple specialist at the Apple store where they fix your phone. Yeah, the
genius bars. Yeah, I don't know if they're the geniuses or the geniuses bitches, but
right. Yeah, exactly. But I feel like I'm probably better than like the average genius now on like swapping out like parts for an iPhone 4 and an iPhone 5. Because I have 50 sitting here, and like I would say like 48 are like a bad component, so you just got to switch out like a good component somewhere to do any sort of research on them. But no, that'd be money. Yeah. So like with Mac, like, do you find it is it's a closed source environment? A lot of people like look at the Apple environment as being like super secure. Like, what do you guys see as like a red team that's typically like the way that you get in and get on a host?
Oh gosh, well, we fish. Fine.
All right, fair.
I'm usually in charge of all the fishing campaigns. I think in one operation I did like 8 different fishing campaigns. It's like an insane amount of fishing. But really what we do is, so we had someone on the team, Bill Dimmer-Cappy, who works now at Microsoft. Speaking out right now. It's always a Windows guy at his core. He put up with our Mac OS bullshit, but he's always a Windows guy at his core. In fact, in the interview, this asshole asked me, he was like, what is session 0 for? I'm like, right, I know this answer, but I don't know this answer also. So thanks to that. I know what that is now. But so he was like our exploit development specialist. So whenever we needed like a payload to do a certain thing, so like I'd be spinning up all these landing pages and these phishing campaigns and writing all the HTML and stuff, and I'd be like, I want the payload if you come in on a Windows box to serve this version, if you come in on a Mac OS box, I want to serve this version, and they would behave differently, and I'd like work with Cedric and Chris to like make sure that the payload was like calling back on the ways we needed it to, and emulating the behaviors we wanted to see. But like that's really how we get initial access most of the time. We don't really do a ton of like assume breach stuff, and we don't really need to do a whole lot of bypass. But Okta bypass is another one because again, no AD provisioning all through Okta, so we can bypass Okta about 11 different ways that I witnessed before I left. And like they would do something new, like turn on MFA, and then we'd bypass it, and then they would turn on. God, they have another feature that I can't remember now. It wasn't MFA, but it was like a push notification, and we found a way to bypass that. And we just kept fucking up Okta basically. But I mean, there's just a lot of like browser session cookie copying and in the man in the middle credential capture and things like that. And then, we can get into Confluence, we can get into G Drive, we can get into all the places. So, a lot of the Mac OS stuff that we have to be careful of is when we do land on someone's host, TCC permissions will pop up a user pop-up for just basically about anything that you can perform. Anything you're trying to alter. You're trying to alter read-write permissions on certain directories, it's going to pop up a TCC permission. So one of the first things we usually do is try and disable that, try and disable Gatekeeper, try and go back and erase the command logs and stuff. So it's just a different beast because we have to operate in LS a lot and move around via CD a lot so that you can't tell that we're in there.
Yeah, that sounds like an absolute pain, to be honest. Like most of the time, in the Windows op, we're so spoiled by, I'll just fork to another process. Let me just create a new process here. I'll jump over to this one. Like even if you remove what you think is the original binary, you're still living in some like service manager somewhere. So no, it's actually kind of wild. I'm trying to think of like uniqueness about Mac, because I only had a Mac when I worked at the Big Four, and I remember I hated it, absolutely hated it.
Military guy, classic.
Yeah, classic. I like my old Windows to be my normal machine, right? Like I want to run with a Windows 7 box all day, Let me just be vulnerable to Eternal Blue permanently.
Yeah, how many crypto miners do you have running on your machine right now?
Right, yeah. Man.
It's not for everybody, but I thought it was really interesting. It was just a different world. You just learn different tradecraft.
It seems like on the Windows side, a lot more of the work is focused on like EDR bypass, where it seems like on the Mac side, it's much more like Gatekeeper bypass and like user prompt bypass. Like I remember last year, like you didn't used to have any user prompt when you put a USB in your Mac, and then the Flipper Zero came out with like the rubber ducky preloaded onto it. And like within 2 weeks, Mac had the update that like now it has to say like, do you accept this USB accessory? Is plugged into your device.
Stuff like that. Yeah. Stuff like that.
Do you do any of the exploit development research into Mac, or are you just like purely focused more on the user land of the application or the OS?
Yeah, I'm not heavy into the exploit development at all, really. Sorry, but if you want to, one of those guys.
She is a one-woman purple team, which we have to ask about that.
We all, and when I got onto the Zoom red team, I only been pen testing for a year. Pen testing, not red teaming, pen testing. So like I kind of came in and started drinking from the fire hose immediately. So I probably would have gotten into the exploit dev eventually, but I was only there for a year before I started doing what I do now. So it's just like there's not enough time to learn everything. I learned so much from those guys. They like grew my matrix exponentially, just plugged me in and let me go. But I didn't start getting into that at all, really.
Fair enough.
The red team looks completely different now. I left, and then Cedric left. He's at the Meta Purple team now. And then Justin left. He's over at Snowflake. And Jose almost went to AWS, and then he actually stayed. So, like, from red team OG, very few of us are left. I think it's just Chris and Jose and Andy, and everyone else has swapped out personnel.
Nice. Yeah, so actually, I kind of want to dig into that a little bit more, the purple team, the one-man purple team thing. If I'm pretty much unfamiliar with the entire background of this, so if you want to I'm pretty sure most of our viewers would be too, since there's like 12 of them. Um, no,
Meryl, each time we increase one viewer, each episode we refer to our view count plus one. It keeps us humble, you know.
it's like an I plus plus, you know.
You're truly doing it for the value of the content, not for the follower count. No one can stick you with that. You know, you're just trying to keep it real.
We're just trying to figure out who we can send Hawaiian shirts to, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like who would be chill enough to get a Hawaiian shirt and like hang out in Vegas one day? But yeah, no.
Like DEF CON?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I'll see you DEF CON. I'll be there.
Or now objective by the sea. We may have to hit a beach
Objective by the
destination with the Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, this is the year of doing weird and wacky conferences, right? Like Hack Space Con this year, which is exploded out of nowhere, and now we know this other one. So I never knew about Hack Space Con. I'm gonna be real about you.
I never heard of that one either. I skipped ShmooCon this year like an idiot because last year it was like all right, solidly all right, like the all rightest conference ever, and like this year everybody went, and it was like DerbyCon feels. I'm like, you assholes. Thanks for that. No one.
I don't know.
Ugh, well,
I know either.
that makes me feel better.
Couldn't get tickets. I wonder.
Yeah, they sold out super quick, didn't they?
Yep.
Yeah, the only way to go is if you speak. That's the one way in.
I have friends in vendor places because I'm in purple teaming, so Plex Track usually helps me out. Dan,
nice.
I love you, Dan.
Oh, nice.
But no, I didn't-
Boise Dan's a good dude. Maybe that's how we met. I don't remember. Boise Dan, first time I ever met Boise Dan was in Vegas, and he was just like, you should try our product out, and like trying to like point it to me, and I was so oblivious to what he was trying to like point me to. 2 years later now, I mean, we use their product and love the crap out of it. But
yeah, I remember the day I discovered who Dan was and who Scythe and like Bryson and George Ortiles were, right? And I'm like, I had been over here in my own little pen testing world, didn't know like the greater pen testing like community was. But I was like, pen testing sucks, man. I'm not getting anything done. And I was like, just this one woman shop unto myself. It was like a very small InfoSec department. And I was like, this is broken. No one's even reading my reports. No one's fixing anything. This shit is dumb. Like I tell everybody, I remember the day that on the pen test report, I did 6 months apart a firewall assessment. Like the only thing I had to change were the dates. Like everything was still there. I'm like, this is shit. So I was like, tell you what, you just give me access to all the platforms to be able to like threat hunt myself and figure the stuff out myself. And I will just tell you with very little effort on your part how you can fix it. And I started like purple teaming by myself before I knew there was like a word for it. And then I found Dan and George and Bryce, and I was like, oh, these are my people. They're doing what I do. But like, there's products for it. Did you know that? Did you know that? Like, so I fell in love like immediately. We became best friends.
yeah, they've really grown through the market too, really, really quickly. And man, I mean, it's just simple. You would think that like the way we're talking about, they're sponsoring the podcast, but hint, hint, wink, wink, Boise Dan, we talk soon. Let me know.
Hashtag.
They're not. It's just a fabulous product.
Yeah, no, it is a great fun product. But yeah, no, talk to us a little bit about like the one woman purple teaming show that you got going on.
Yeah, so about 4 months into my cyber career, I grew up in risk. I was a risk analyst. So I was working a lot with like SOC 2 Type 2 assessments and stuff and like third-party risk programs and things like that. I kind of grew, like I kind of, optimized and automated all that. Because when I started in cyber and pen testing, I knew nothing about cyber or pen testing. And eventually I started just branching out and like helping admin certain tools, like very light like levels of like our VM management and the DLP tool and stuff like that. And eventually my boss, who was doing all the pen testing at the time, really with like Core Impact and a few other tools, was like, I was just like, just send me all that stuff, all those screenshots and stuff, and I'll just put it in a report for you. So I had to start researching vulnerabilities and understanding what she found and why it was bad and how she did it. And then I would take that off her plate for her. And then when they opened up a pen tester position, I leveraged that to talk my way into the job, doing absolutely no pen testing. In fact, I was at an offsite in DC last week, and I ran in. I had a buddy from VetSec, VeteranSec community, come and hang out with us at a happy hour, and he was the first guy that I sat down and was like asking all my stupid questions too. I'm like, they just told me to hack an API. What does that mean? How would you do that? And he would like send me some links and like I would go educate myself, and off I go. And he was like, I'm not going to lie, I was worried about you in the beginning. Like, you were asking some pretty scary, basic questions. I didn't know if it, like, you would ever go anywhere with that. But I was very small. I was unto myself. I was a one-person shop. And once I talked my way into the pen tester position, I realized very quickly that all the pen testing I knew how to do wasn't actually helping secure the organization at all, because, well, not only did we have a very us versus them mentality with IT ops. They were like, what does the boppy millennial chick in security want now? Like, didn't you just get here? Like, why is she allowed to tell us how to do our jobs and tell us how much our systems suck? And I'm like, okay, we're gonna deal with that. So I was like, tell you what, if you don't want to help me, and you don't want to read my reports, and you, like, they weren't even opening up the tickets and then just ignoring them. It wasn't even dying in a ServiceNow backlog. They were just doing nothing at all. And I was like, okay, that's fair. So I got permission to get access to all of our tools, like our SIM tool, our threat hunting tool, like all these jazzy things that my department was onboarding, but we didn't admin them. Technically, the blue side admined them. And I was like, I'll just threat hunt myself. I'll just start, like, I'll do something, and I'll make sure that, like, if we're not seeing it in places we should be seeing it, I'll, like, do the trickle back effect and see, like, why certain data sources aren't going certain places and figure out our telemetry gaps. And then I will just say, if you just go in, and I'm pretty sure to a reasonable degree, take this rule and modify it slightly and insert it in there, you know, we should have coverage on this thing. Can you just let me know when that's done, and I'll retest it. I'll retest it myself, and I'll threat hunt myself and make sure it's showing up. And, like, I just started doing that because I didn't really have another option. So I was kind of blue teaming and purple teaming myself. And then I started doing extra side work as an actual threat hunter for a different company. So I was really trying to teach myself as many facets of the blue skills that my job as a red teamer touched as much as I could. So that kind of made me like the little walking woman purple team. Like, even when I worked at Zoom and I pioneered the purple team there, I was still doing it by myself, because I figured out a way to, like, start these programs and scale them with just one person and, like, mostly open source tools. And then eventually, obviously, budget and more resources would be great because you can scale them. But it really enabled me to teach myself how I can, like, alongside the other flows that I have, start scaling and building capabilities like this. And then I got into higher echelons of, like, the value we can provide in demonstrating metrics and, like, cyber resilience. And, like, really, you can take it so much farther than just, like, you don't want to remediate the things in a pen test report, so I'll help you. It goes so much beyond that at this point. That's how it started.
That's a good background. So, like, with some of the tools that you've grown up and started to use within your purple teaming experience, like, what would you recommend is a good place to start for those of us that are on the red team trying to learn a little bit more about the blue team so we can be a little bit better at being effective?
I'd say to start first of all breaking down the silos of who you are. You know, red teams want to be work clandestine, and we want to be mercurial and mysterious and stuff, but it doesn't actually help communication between teams. It doesn't help collaborative mindsets, and it doesn't and always help secure the org when we're always faced off in a CTF style engagement. So I just start introducing myself and saying, hey, I work on OPSEC, I'm new, like, this is the type of work we do. What type of work do you do? And I'll reach out to incident response folks, detection engineering, security engineering, product engineering, CTI, incident response, BCP folks. And I just literally start introducing myself. And the more I learn about their processes, I'm like, tell me about that. Tell me about how your team does that. Tell me about your resource constraints. Tell me about, if you found something, what would you do? And then I'm like, hey guys, if they see something, if they suspect something, they will scan like this. If they scan something like this and find something over here, they start investigating that immediately. It's all hands on deck. So we would start setting off, like, decoy callbacks and, like, decoy malicious activities, because we know they're investigating it, and start doing the real things over here on these other ports and processes and things over here. And so you can literally take that and leverage blue team processes and knowledge in your red team operations. But additionally, you're learning how the defenders think. How do they defend? How do they hunt? How do they find? And you can tell them, well, in a purple team engagement, I would say, well, this is what I go for. This is how I do it. This is why. I'm hoping this piece will give me this step, and then I can come over here with it. And when I try these things and it doesn't work, this is how I get creative. This is how I try and get around that. This is how I try and, you know, live off the land. And so they're being educated on adversarial mindset and, like, behaviors, and you're being educated on defender behaviors. And it kind of makes both of you better at your jobs, because not only am I helping them learn what they can automate and, like, alert on or block, but if they can't automate it, and they must do a manual investigation, I want those to be really value added. I want them to say, oh, I wouldn't normally have thought that was suspicious, but I remember when Maril was doing it, it looked like this. So if I look and I see this, which she also did, okay, now I have both of these things together. Now I'm correlating IOCs, and now I know that something might be up, and that's much more value added, but like you can't necessarily alert on those anomalous things together. But it's a much more better use of the human's time. But so if our teamers want to start, I say just start introducing yourself, learning about the other side, sit along on investigations, get your hands on their documentation, right? Documentation is great. And just start learning how they think and how they behave. And then you can start purple teaming.
So what I'm hearing is purple teaming is an extroverted job,
Yes.
right? In a largely introverted industry.
Yes. You can always designate a sacrificial purple team lamb to go forth and do the socializing on your behalf. That's usually my job. Yeah, and that's honestly one of the first skills I brought to cyber when I didn't know any technical things. I was like, hey, I might not know that, but I'm willing to go to all the meetings and talk to all the people and give all the briefings that you don't want to give. And everyone was like, solid, hired. You just send Maril to that meeting. We're not going.
Have you found it to be like a roadblock in some cases where it is like just the personality of being introverted has caused issues in trying to communicate around learning, or are most people just pretty willing once you start to get down into their their weeds of their career?
I think it's a learning curve. I've worked with certain people like on different offensive teams who really take to it right away and are really good at explaining the narrative and like, for the stakeholder outbrief, giving it a narrative, for the technical outbrief, giving it in like technical steps. And then I've learned some people can't get away from the technical. They like, someone will say, yeah, what is the impact of this? Like, why does this matter? And they'll be like, yeah. And they'll go right into the steps they took and like syntax and stuff. I'm like, wrong audience. So then I'm there to be like, so I think what they're saying is this was how that happened. So it's nice to like identify your strengths and weaknesses. And if you need to bring a layman translator, bring a layman translator. If you are uncomfortable speaking about your part of the attack path, like practice it beforehand. We go through a lot of dress rehearsals on our outreach sometimes if we're bringing the super non-comfortable with public speaking people with us. But just like with everything else, it's a learning curve. But it is crucial skill for technicians to be able to talk about their work to technical and non-technical audiences. So if I find that deficiency in some of my teamies, then I just kind of try and help them work on it in like smaller audiences. And then we graduate bigger and bigger as we go. But the first word in purple is collaborate. So if you're scared as shit to collaborate, that's the first hump we got to get over.
I just added another one to my vocabulary. Teamies. Teamies is the new one. I'm going to start calling my team my teamies.
You're like, what up, teamie? They're like, what?
Yeah, well, it's probably the nicer things that I've said to them. I usually call
like, I am not participating in this.
I'll call your guys teamies too.
Yeah, you'll call them teamies, yeah. Usually we start the meeting with, what's up, nerds? And then it's like, okay, it's all downhill from here.
Yeah, it's just been nerds for we've been there.
My team could tell what kind of mood I'm in. So we're like, morning team here. I'm like, sup, assholes.
Yeah.
Spicy today.
Got the tequila in the coffee this morning.
And screwdriver gets the job done.
Maril,
You're not totally kidding. It's still my work day. It's like 4:00 here.
Maril, I have a purple team follow up. So all of us on the call either have are consultants that work with pretty mature security orgs, or we work at pretty mature security orgs where there is an established red team and there is an established blue team. What if you work at an organization where maybe you're one of a couple of security engineers and you're just kind of dabbling in all aspects of the org, or oftentimes an org will have a couple of SOC analysts and they'll get their quarterly pen test done, but they really have no internal red team capabilities. Like, where do you start purple teaming if you're kind of at an organization that hasn't reached that maturity where there's an active red team and blue team?
Well, I'll challenge you and ask, do you think simply the fact that you have multiple blue teams and a red team means you're a mature organization? Because it does not always equal security maturity. It does not always. Oftentimes a lot of orgs a lot of orcs sprint before they crawl, and they spun up all these teams. And actually, I experienced this on one red team where it was like the blue team was like, "Yo, we're tired. We're like 3 ops behind. And you just stop for a minute." And the red team was like, "Well, we're bored. We have OKRs. We have, we got shit we got to do. What do we do if we can't red team?" So I would not say that always equals maturity. If there's a lot of low hanging fruit, I usually come in and find at those orgs as well. So don't think you're off the hook if you fall into that category. But having those teams spun up and having their dedicated roles in swim lanes is a great place to start, because then I know immediately who I would go to and ask certain questions and start like identifying where the process gaps are and the maturity gaps are. But if you are a smaller shop, and I've done this for everyone from a startup to an SMB, obviously to FANG size organizations, there is still a place you can start. And I think that's the best place to start, is before you start bringing in sophisticated red teamers and really expensive resources that are just going to get bored or just going to work themselves out of a job because they're killing it. They're accomplishing all their objectives. Nothing's getting secure. There's blue team defeat. There's morale decrease and all that. So I say bring purple teaming in even earlier than that. If you can't pass an audit, time to start purple teaming. If you're getting the pen test and it sucks, time to start purple teaming. And there's it's one of the reasons I am such a great little walking, talking one person advocate for this, is because I can come in and say I can help you. I can bring those offensive capabilities. I can do them myself. I can work with your defenders. If you outsource everything, you have nothing in house, I can work with your vendors. I'll bring your MSP in. I'll bring in whatever pen testing firm you work with. But pen testing firms are by the hour. They're contractors and consultants, so I don't always advocate for that. But I say before you pay $20,000 to bring them in, let me work with your people to identify and baseline and do gap analysis and like literally catch as much of that low-hanging fruit as we possibly can, so that when you do have the pen test, that's value added. Those are gaps we didn't know before, or you're confirming exactly where we thought we stood, which is a really sweet place to be in. But they're not just going to come in and pwn you and fuck you up, like, which we all know they're going to do anyway. Like, at least you stood a fighting chance. So we really want to come in and qualitatively improve defenses as much as we can before you start pen testing. If you are getting annual pen tests done, and honestly they suck, but you're checking the box, you're getting it done, that's a great place we can start. I'm going to come in and say, what were they finding? Why were they able to get there? Why haven't you addressed these? Oh, you have addressed these. How do you think you addressed those? Let's fine tune that more. Let's dial down on that better. I get a discussion going. How can you alert on that better? Like, we can't alert on every single time someone uses clipboard. I'm like, no, you can't. That would be very noisy, right? That would be very non-value added. But can you alert on every time someone does it from the command line? That's not a basic user function. If someone's in a certain role, certain group policy bucket, and they're doing certain things, can you alert on that? Because that would be indicative that, Tom in sales should not be doing certain functions from the command line and things like that. So I really try to help them figure out what's best for your environment. But purple teams are so customized. I have to come in. I have to establish what you want to see out of it. I have to establish what your goals are. I have to establish how you're going to define success, what metrics you're tracking, where you're at, who I'm working with, what is your org's layout, what is your structure? Do you have security? Do you not? Are they all under the same department? Are they not? Do you outsource pieces? Do you not? So I have to work with every single org that I build a purple team for on an individual basis. To figure out how it's going to look for them. Like, even the one I built for CMS Batcave, which was one platform, is completely different than the one I'm now building for CMS Marketplace, which is all the ADOs not necessarily living on Batcave. So it's just a specialized product. You just got to know what you're working with and how to do it and how to scale the methodology to figure out where to start. But a lot of orgs will start purple teaming, honestly, in the middle of a freaking incident. They're like, we have an incident. We don't know how to investigate. Get the red team in here. Fix this. And you're like, you literally called the wrong people. But yes, we understand what we would do would look, so we'll try to help you find it. But like, you don't know what you're doing. But that's the first time the red and the blue are sitting in the same room trying to accomplish a mutual goal. But even a tabletop exercise can be a purple team exercise. That's a great place to start too, from a regulatory, right, and GRC standpoint. So if you're not doing the basics like that, there's no way you're going to survive a pen test or a full-on red team operation, which is why we should start with purple team engagements first. Sorry, that was a long answer.
I like want to hire you. I don't even have a team that I run. I'm like, I want to bring you in for purple team my org.
It's advocating for it, though, right? Like, ultimately, it's important at the end of the day. And it gives Ross a second job. Now he's not only a risk advisory kind of guy, but he's also a purple teamer.
Are you?
Yeah,
do you work in a collaborative security function? Do you do risk and stuff too?
Yeah, I do a lot of, I work as a consultant, but the majority of it is on the risk side. I do appreciate that specifically in tabletop exercises, I get to bring the red team and the OffSec side of what I do, and working with the V's team on on offensive security. So I guess you could say I'm on that purple team.
You are the purple team.
I would qualify that as a purple function. Yes, I absolutely would. First of all, I had a point I was going to make. Please cut this out of the recording. God, no, that would... Okay, yeah, I would say, second of all, found it. I got it back. I got it back. Oh, the callbacks are firing.
This is like live streamed. Were you not aware? This is on YouTube right now.
It's called the recording channel. That's a really dirty trick. Assholes. This is Cyber Idiots. I'm just keeping your branding alive, okay? I'm just embodying your brand's values. I did get it back, though. So I'm going to say red teamers don't take it far enough. They don't tie what they do to risk. They're like, oh, this is arbitrarily a medium, low, or high. Or better yet, they give it a CVSS score, which is totally not useful. I always call CVSS scores like the vulnerabilities like dating profile, like its personality profile, but like not taking into account like anything else. Like that's just like if you walked into it out there on the street. I think tying it to risk, using a risk management framework, giving it organizational context, and taking the red team findings that we do have and tying them to risk is a very purple delivery and function. You're helping not only business units and non-technical units, but the blue side honestly understand what business impact does the technical work that I do have. How does it equate to dollars? How does it equate to reduce attack surface? And that's going to directly play into things like cybersecurity insurance coverage and due diligence.
Absolutely.
So, good on you, Ross.
It's a new perspective I hadn't really considered. But it's
Purple King. We're naming it.
Welcome to our own. I'm a purple teamer now. I need a raise.
I'm gonna do.
Maril says I need a raise because I'm purple now.
Just sign your signature. Yeah, I like the one Bobby gave, the Purple King. People would be so confused in our business. They'd be like, what kind of title is that? Then again, I tried to get away with like Supreme Commander of the Galactic Fleet as a title. That did not work out. Yeah.
I just went by OJ the Clean Boy.
My interns used to call me Queen of the Nerds because I had a couple interns. They were like, Maril's our Queen of the Nerds. I'm like, okay. Quan was my name.
Did you have like a wall, like a giant wall that you could defend from?
No, I did have a turret though. I did have a turret from which I gave orders.
Oh.
Legit.
Yeah, that is pretty legit. So as you mentioned, like quantitating risk towards like a framework in particular, like do you have a framework that's like a go-to or
Yes.
The Cyber Queen framework 1.0.
Exactly. Obviously I wrote it myself. I didn't plagiarize any of it. No, well for ChatGPT. It's a good write me a framework. Brand my podcast. That's where it came from. No, I'm totally kidding. But I'm going to try that. I'm going to say, if you were to brand a podcast, how would you do it? Just see what it says. So for risk management, I do like the risk management framework, the RMF. Things that come out of that framework are things like risk matrices and risk registers, which I believe in greatly. So I have a customized risk matrix that I use blanket across all of my products I deliver. And I don't say it's the only solution, but I say it's the solution that I know the best and that I trust the most. And what it does is it takes like the risk equation is risk equals likelihood times impact. So it takes likelihood and impacts, breaks them down into 8 separate factors that we grade according to like business impact, technical impact. For the likelihood, like technical acumen required, general knowledge factors required, kind of like incorporating that CVSS piece. And we get like an inherent risk. And then from the inherent risk, I assign a control effectiveness factor to it as well. So like maybe out in the wild, this would have been like a 7.1, but because we've got a WAF and we've got this, and like that EC2 is spun down when no one is using it, and the SSH keys can only come from one IP address for the engineer home address, whenever I'm like, based on all these like mitigating factors, the control effectiveness is really like a 5, which honestly makes this like a 1.9 for us. This is really not a concern. We don't need to spend additional dollars, additional time mitigating this factor when this is pretty well covered already. So I give it a residual risk that's much more context driven for the org. But other ones you can use are like PASTA. PASTA is actually like a threat modeling framework. So the other two you might know are Dread and Stride, and those are really geared towards like data threat modeling and system threat modeling. POS is like another good one for vulnerabilities, but I don't personally like it very much. So
I think
Ross.
you just touched.
I was gonna say, tell Maril about how you score organizations from 0 to 1, and you just say insecure or secure, and this is the
0 to 1
framework.
That would be quite a framework. I think you hit something that's crucial. Earlier, you had mentioned that you might have a technical person that just wants to talk about, well, this is a high vulnerability or a high risk, but you need to be able to look at the organization contextually. You need to look. Risk is not going to be linear across everything. You have to look at how it plays into the business impact. You have to look at what other mitigating controls they have in place. Like, all of that has to be holistically assessed before you can really say this is business impact and this is how we assign a criticality to something. And I think that's something that a lot of people in our field struggle to understand at times, especially if you're not raised in that like risk assessment type of mentality. It's just very easy to see a vulnerability as critical and not look at how it fits into the context of the organization.
I agree. Like, we would all sit around and like talk about the grades for our findings and be like, well, I think it's a high. Well, I think it's a medium. Well, why do you think that? And it's like, I seek to inject as much objectivity into a very subjective process as possible. So like each of those factors has a 1 to 8 scale with like metrics tied to them. So if it's like more than $100,000 loss, it's automatically a 7. But if it's like between a $50,000 and $100,000 loss, it can be between a 5 and 7. And like, I'm just trying to take as much of that. I think it's easy. I think it's hard. I don't think it's a big deal. I think it is, out of it as possible. Because yeah, opinions are a thing.
They are.
No, I think that's fair.
I mean, it's tough whenever a lot of risk is just subjective by nature. It's hard to make it quantitative and be able to objectively prove it when there's just a lot of subjectivity to assessing risk.
1000%.
I think we can all agree, though, that an expired SSL cert is not a critical risk, right?
If I see insecure logging, I'm putting that CVSS 10 and letting someone downgrade it down the line.
I don't know why it is. It's like every vulnerability scanner in the book's like, hey, dude, you know this SSL cert's expired, right? So we're going to go ahead and hit this with a 10 out of 10 critical must replace now. Like, you're going to get hacked so quick. Like, what? That one never makes sense to me.
I would agree. I would say that like that's one of those things where it's like, yeah, maybe that could be like a contributing factor along the way. Like, probably not optimal, but probably not the one reason you got hacked either. Like, there were probably other things leading.
Did you all see on Twitter this week, there was some conference that's being organized this year in London, and they're charging speakers like $1,000 speaker fee to speak at the conference. And then everyone went and looked, and they have like, the site has like an expired SSL cert, and then everyone just started roasting them for charging speakers, and then not even addressing the like bare minimum.
No, I didn't see that. What I will say though is when sites host their own certificate, right, and Google Chrome is like, this is not safe, there might be a hacker on here stealing your data. I'm like, I mean, I get it. You want to host your own cert. That's fine. It's probably easier to go through a certifying body. But if you don't want to, you know, to each his own. But it doesn't necessarily mean this is unsafe.
Yeah, but like, how free is Let's Encrypt, right? It's like a 5-finger discount, essentially. Yeah. No, for sure. Actually, I didn't see that, Bobby, but that's pretty.
Yeah, I'm gonna find that thread. I don't know if it's like a legit website or if they're just trying to like scam people out of things, but like it was also like they had the venue, they had the speakers, and then if you go under pricing, it was like $990 for speaker.
What a mad lad conference. Like, just
I feel like
imagine.
their goal is to be like the worst conference ever.
I think RSA holds that. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or for ours, we got Microsoft, RSA Con. Who else is on the hit list for this evening?
Just you know, all we need is the editor just to bleep out all these names. So at the end of it, it's just the same name every single time.
Unrelated, hit me up if you're going to be at RSA, because your boys can be there. It's the worst con ever this year.
Shameless plug.
It's just so expensive. Like, can't we move it to a better city and a less expensive city? Like, even San Diego would be cheaper at this point, which is crazy.
right? And San Francisco has gone down the hole since like I lived there way back in the day, right? Like it was gorgeous. Don't get me wrong. Pre-pandemic, awesome. I mean, expensive, but awesome, right? But that city is just like taking a hit from the pandemic, and it's rough.
I
Like,
just
I-
agreed to speak there in June. Now I'm like,
Did you? Oh man.
Santa Clara, so I think it's a nicer suburb where like the 49ers play. But
No, like
the
Santa Clara is not a bad area. Yeah, it's all right.
yeah, but like
hotel
downtown,
we
that's
stayed at was bad.
yeah.
It's like there was a dude like shooting up fentanyl like right in front of the hotel, and there's like a guard standing in the hotel. Like, all right, buddy, just don't do it in here. Like, yeah, it's as much as I love
No,
the
it's an annoying city. It's an annoying city. It's an annoying city, and I'll tell you why. Like, you pay like $3,000 a month there to share a room with 4 other people. It's insane. Second of all, parking is so abhorrent that you can literally pay a service. There's like an Uber-like app where you can pay a service to pay someone to come get your car and drive it around and attempt to find parking while you're at dinner. But if they don't, they're just driving your car around for an hour and a half so it doesn't get towed. And I'm like, this is stupid. Like we have a civil engineering problem on our hands. This is
well, you know who we can thank for that? This week's
Google.
sponsor, Apple, Google, and Facebook.
I swore he was going to say Obama.
honestly, I don't know where we're going with this. And
We could go.
Thanks,
I'm just like, what are the big campuses? I know you're attacking one of the big campuses. That's where we're going with this.
I mean, that's pretty much what happened, right? Though that Silicon Valley boom is really what caused San Francisco to increase in prices. Because I remember as a kid, like the houses that are millions upon millions of dollars now, like they were like $300K back then. Sure, it was expensive, but like it was manageable. And then
Yeah, but there are no affordable neighborhoods now. That's a thing of the past.
You know,
No.
Silicon Valley Bank today is just completely insolvent. Really timely with all
Yeah, the bank collapsed. I was like,
all their Silicon Valley money is now definitely out the window. You see 90% of their deposits were uninsured.
yeah,
yeah.
it's rough. It was almost all in the housing market too, which is even more terrifying because it's like, all right, if we had a financial issue there,
They need to
where
utilize
else?
your y'all's risk frameworks. If they had those frameworks, wouldn't be in this
Their
position.
risk appetite was like 100% of the pie. Hey, is that risky? We don't care. We've already maxed it out. That's fine. Just add more risk. At this point, we don't even notice when more risk comes on board. This is fine.
Pretty sure.
Everything
Yeah, I'm
is
pretty sure
fine.
most Americans at this point have better credit score than like the federal government and half our banks. Like, it's pretty terrifying. They're like, oh yeah, just max out your credit card, you'll be good.
It'll be fine.
You can pay it off over 40 years, or until the banks default. You know.
We'll just convert that for you. Don't worry about it. We'll convert it for you into a consumer loan. With the
Meanwhile, Sam's just like, feel free to put this 10K course on your credit card.
And this 5K cert, we need you to take the 5K cert specifically, and then
If you don't have your CISSP, you cannot step foot into anything cyber related.
That's used to be how it was, though.
I just saw another post about that today on Twitter.
That's the whole episode. We go down this road. CISSP. We could do a full hour on that.
Oh God, we really like it used to be like the CISO cert, right? In order to be a CISO, you have to have a CISP, and now it's like in order to get a job in cyber, where's your CISP? And it's like you realize it's like a 5-year certification, right? Like I could have passed the test 2 years ago, but there's no point because I can't even apply for the certification for another 3 years. I would have just held the test score, waiting for the years of experience necessary to certify. And I'm like, this is silly.
Paying your dues, and then continuously paying your dues because you can't reach your CPEs because it's nearly impossible to do that while you're working. Yeah,
Yeah.
we could go in depth, but let's not. Let's
Can I just say, we were talking about RSA. Can I say how excited I am for DEF CON?
DEF CON's gonna be a blast.
I'm just so.
DEF CON's gonna be lit.
It's gonna be so lit, fam. It's gonna be so good.
We're gonna have our sweet party again.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna have our sweet party.
Meanwhile, Marin, these two guys are speaking at this conference, Hack Space Con at Kennedy Space Center, which they hadn't heard of and I hadn't heard of either. And then someone pings me this week and they're like, "Hey, like, do you want to go to Hack Space Con?" I was like, I saw David going. I'm like, done, booking it this weekend.
He's like,
Cyber
everyone.
Idiots Kennedy Space Center gathering.
You guys should do a live podcast from there. That would be excellent.
Oh yeah, we're
Yeah, we
trying
should.
to.
So what are you
We
guys
need more
speaking
live
on?
C2 connoisseuring, turning anything, mostly anything, into a C2. So like looking at like typical like processes and all that jazz, and just kind of throw out the idea that it has to be TCP or HTTP, or you have to have this like linear kind of focus into it has to go from my host to the C2 or to the command server. Like, nah, there's 1,000 different ways to create C2. And you don't have to be like super complex or lead about it. Like, you just got to think, okay, how do things communicate, and manipulate it from there. So going over like really what the basics of real C2 means, and like why nation states are really the ones that are innovating, because they realize what C2 actually means. So kind of opening and trying to expand the knowledge of those people. Because like from the way Ken Nevers, the guy one of the advisors who runs Hack SpaceCon, what he explained is like it used to be like a big old conference for like students and a little bit of government. But now it's like they're trying to expand to everyone, to like industry, the whole 9 yards. And like the lineup of people he got to agree to speak is insane.
It's pretty solid.
Yeah.
We got
it's like-
Beyonce's up in there. Beyonce's up in Cyberspace Con.
This
got,
is
like-
the fifth stop on our new tour. It's Dubai, and then
right.
What? Oh my God, you got chipped. You have to go speak at the Kennedy Space Center version, and they got one in Dubai?
no,
I was like, oh dang. I was like, really? I was like, you got.
I wanted to be an astronaut, okay? So like speaking at the Kennedy Space Center is pretty cool to me.
that's
I'm like,
basically being an astronaut. You can just call yourself an
Yeah.
astronaut now.
I basically, yeah.
Philip
I've
Wiley's
gone to
going to be there.
Yeah, Bo Bullocks from Black Hill.
Jason Haddix from Ubisoft. Formerly.
I love Bo. I took his cloud hacking course like 3 years ago.
Yeah, super smart dude, right? Where the heck is some
Actually-
other guys?
I'm a single mom, and like when I took his training, my babysit that was at Wild West Hack and Fest Way West, like 2020, like the first one we had after all the or 2021 after all the pandemic things. And I didn't have a sitter for my kid. My sitter that morning like fell through, so I like brought my 5-year-old in with me to my cloud hacking training, and she just sat there with us for like all 8 hours, 2 straight days, and was just playing around, having a good time. She was like our little mascot.
It's a good kid. I feel like any kid of mine would have been like bouncing off the wall.
Yeah.
No, she was pretty good. Okay,
Jason
Hack
Haddock's
SpaceCon.
gonna be there.
Just said Jason Haddix.
Ooh.
Oh, did you? Oh, I didn't hear it.
Like Jason Haddix, formerly of Ubisoft.
Oh, you're right. You did say that. What are then there's like a ton of trainings. We're doing a free workshop for the first 2 courses of the Windows malware development. I totally forgot the class that I was teaching there for a second. Dark Wolf, We Hack People, Black Sheep, those kind of guys are going to be there. Trying to find Ed Scosis, the president of SANS, is supposed to be there as well. Like, there's a Keith Adams. Yeah, Keith Adams.
I'm gonna have to be there. Oh, it's before RSA though. It's like literally the week before RSA.
It is.
Yeah. Nick Popovich, our homie over at Plextrack, he's coming in. So
You guys should also go to hardware.io. Hear me talk about the Boston Transit system. Ooh.
But
It's gonna be.
yeah,
Hey,
this thing
well,
kind of popped out of nowhere.
I would say, yeah, I've like never heard of it, but shoot, maybe I'll come on down. Sounds like everyone's getting together.
We should tell Nikki about this
Yeah.
too. We'll get the whole gang together.
Oh, yeah.
Joe.
Yeah, well, Nikki's local, so that'll be like no big deal for her. You just pop on over.
Yeah, Lily's gonna come out too. She's pretty close now. She's down there in Florida. I think she's up in Tampa. So she's gonna drive down, hang out with us for a little bit.
Man,
I feel like-
this is insane. It's like space, security, technology talks, free and pro training, career and talent, CTFs, hacker Jeopardy, side shenanigans.
The amount of like donations that they got or donations, I guess, sponsorships that they got from like just random people just giving away like 20 CRTO licenses and God, I can't tell you how many prizes they have for the raffle now. Like I was talking to Ken the other day, and they're like good over like 50 or 60 like pretty expensive certification vouchers that are just like up for grabs in the raffle.
Man.
Philip Wiley's giving like a bunch of signed books away. A Wi-Fi Pineapple Enterprise.
Your Hawaiian
That's a
shirt.
lot.
After you give the talk, you're gonna rip it off and give it to one lucky winner.
Yeah, I'm
Bro,
just
I
gonna
want that.
I'm gonna do like the post game interviews, where I'm like, here you go, boy.
They
Give it
promised
off.
we would play this drinking game while we're there that we made
We're
up.
not.
Where this game is so dumb, we just slid this bottle of rum back and forth across the table and like treated it like paper football. So you know how like on paper football you got the it to hang off the side of
It's
the
paper
table.
football.
Yeah.
that
You know, like,
paper
if it-
football.
You slide it across, and if it hangs off the side of the table, and then you got a point, and then you got to kick it. What we played was you slide in. If it hung off the side, that person had to take a drink. But if you pushed it off the side, you have to take a drink. And David promised that we would play it at Hackspace.
I did not. I
did.
watched Ross nearly drink himself to death and then sober up 3 hours later like it was nothing. Like an absolute champion. It was
my
so
God.
impressive. And I'm like, I might be exaggerating because I may have been a little inebriated myself, but it did feel like 3 hours. And then the next thing you know, Ross is like, well, gotta go back to my hotel room, and just like got up and left. And we're like,
Basically, what
"You
happened?
walk? The man drank like a whole bottle of whiskey and like half a bottle of rum. And
You know, I got a message. I got a message today. Have fun at Hackspace Con. Don't get too high with David.
They know.
oh man, that's too funny.
They're onto your shit.
They are.
yeah.
Listen, I'm in my mid-30s. If I go to one networking event night one, I need like the next 2 or 3 to recover. Okay?
That's why I
It's
just
a-
purely
bonkers.
stick to like, yeah, I purely stick to the the ganja as they call it. I'm not a big drinker because I will suffer for the next day. I'm nowhere near like when in my early 20s where I'd be like, oh yeah, I drank plenty and I feel fine. Get up the next morning, go for a run at 6 a.m. because that's what we have to do. No. I'm
No.
like, I take like 2 drinks and I'm like, okay, I'm dying. I'm too small for this shit.
You don't have enough body weight to counter out your bad choices.
Yeah, the body weight, the height. I don't got it going for me. Yeah. But
I feel that.
yeah,
I feel that.
I think Space Hat Con is going to be like the precursor party to DEF CON. But DEF CON will definitely have to have our Cyber Idiots Hawaiian shirts done by then. So that'll be pretty cush.
Now, are you getting custom Hawaiian shirts?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
100%.
You can put your faces on them.
Oh,
Oh,
I already have one of those.
He's got one with his face on it. It's wild. He also has a
It's-
mug with his face on it.
It's actually sitting on my desk. It's when I had hair. Yeah. No, they used that on a April Fool's joke. Like we were all sitting in an all call, and I'm giving like the rundown of the business at the time. And what I think it was Jake, one of my consultants at the time, is just like, "Well, I'll drink to that," and then like the whole team picks up a cup with my face on it and just starts drinking. I'm like, "Oh man, I want this cup now." So I have one.
I attended a meeting once with my "fuck you, I mean good morning" mug, and I was like, "Yeah, blah blah blah." Where did that come from? I don't know where that came from. That's why I use nondescript cups now, so I don't get in trouble.
Meryl, did you
Sure.
have like conference speaking? Because one of my first thoughts, like in the first 10 minutes of the podcast, was like I would listen to like a 3-hour Purple Team talk from you at like whatever con I go to.
I do actually. I've done a fair number of them. I did the Red Team Roundup and Purple Team Roundup for Wild West Hack and Fest. I spoke at Sans Hack Fest last November. I actually did a webinar on purple teaming, which was funny because it was with George. It was with George and Dan, so Scythe and Plextrack, and it was like Dan, CEO of Plextrack, and George Orchila, CTO of Scythe, and Maril, security engineer. But we're like, is it? Is that where we did?
We were paired up for, you remember how they were saying we'll do one blue team, one red team, one blue team, one red team kind of thing. Yeah. So we were on the other side because it was Nick Popovich and then you, and then it went to me. And we were supposed to try to figure out how to make like our presentations close. And we're like, I don't know, let's just wing it.
We're just gonna, yeah, I remember that now. Sorry, there were a lot. There were a lot of them.
It was, yeah, I mean, it was a wild year, right? Yeah, I had much longer hair.
Okay. I actually had much shorter hair. I had my hair added on after, so I went the opposite. I was rocking short hair for a long time, and then I acted all on. I do remember that now. Yeah, so that was the purple teaming for all. No, that was yeah, purple teaming for all. The path to adversarial emulation. That's what that one was. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I do a fair amount of speaking. Actually, the first talks I ever started giving at hacker conferences were not hacking related at all. They were trying to teach hackers how to be better at social media, which was what I did in my before life before I came to cyber. So I am like out there doing all the social things. But it's hard to educate people one podcast at a time, one conference talk at a time about purple teaming things. So I'm actually going to be starting a purple team podcast myself soon, where I just literally come on and talk about these things. What is it? How is it? Why do you do it? When do you do it? When's a good idea to do it? How would various organizations do it? And just try to start imparting as much of my knowledge as possible out there. Some people are like, what is it? I'm interested. And I don't have time to DM everybody. I can just point them to some links, and hopefully if they're interested, then we can have more conversations.
You should make a Fiverr class. Then you get
but I was gonna say, Maril, how do we, the cyber idiots, or whoever's listening, how do we leverage social media better to grow our podcast or personal brand or whatever we're
well do you really want me to go down the social media rabbit hole? Because I will. We only have like 10 minutes left.
You've done an amazing job growing your Cyber Queen brand. So, I mean, I'd definitely be curious to hear. And you just said it's your background, right?
So all of the platforms have a specific formula and specific things you need to do to make them happy, to get them to serve your content to their consumers. So you need to understand who owns every platform, how their algorithm works, how they like to see content formatted, and how they like to see branding. And then the other marketing component of that is you need to understand what makes people lean in, like how do you frame content and develop content in a way that your audience wants to consume it. So you need to figure out who is your audience very specifically, like to nauseating detail. Who are the people that you're aiming your content towards? How, where, and when do they like to consume their content? You develop the content, and then you have to manipulate your content for each of the platforms you want to be on to make sure that it's served in a way that the algorithm will pick it up and start serving it to people. So there's a whole lot of science that goes into that. So for YouTube wants frequent screen changes. They don't really like it when you come on and you kind of just talk. So like the Cyber Queens YouTube is really just static. It's just us sitting there talking kind of like this. So it doesn't do very well, but the videos that are jumpy and have a lot of cuts and stuff, it's because YouTube wants people to stay on that video for as long as possible. And when you do frequent video cuts, it like brings people's attention back because it's contrast. It like wakes up something in your primal brain that says, hey, pay attention to this. So they like really contrasting colors in the branding. They like you to have a thumbnail. They don't reward clickbait, meaning if you say this episode is about us, like an AMA on hacking, and then it turns out to be a tutorial on PowerShell or something, people click off. If people click off within the first 30 seconds, you're dinged. If people click off after the first minute, you're dinged. It literally, there's a whole science behind it. But what it really comes down to in growing a following or an audience on any of the given social media platforms like Twitter or LinkedIn is to identify the message that it is you want to deliver and the people who like that message, to format the content. So for LinkedIn, you're going to get rewarded higher for videos than you will for pictures. You'll get rewarded for pictures more than you will for just copy, which is just words. And you'll get rewarded for much, much bigger blog posts than you will for short posts and things like that. And what the algorithms are doing is they're serving your content to a very small portion of your followers for the first hour, less than 10% of your followers for the first hour. And how those 10% interact, the level of engagement you get determines whether or not the algorithm serves it to a bigger percentage of even your followers, people who've actively clicked follow on you for the next hour after that. And if you don't perform well in the first 2 hours, your posts will die. So there's a whole science behind it. But really, I just say market through authenticity. So whatever it is you are, whoever it is you are, be that person. Be that person on socials. Don't be somebody that you're not, because it makes you unrelatable, and people don't like following unrelatable brands. They like following relatable brands. So like cyber idiots, I was like, that's exciting because everyone working in cyber is an idiot. I'm sorry, I love you all, but you're idiots. Like I like that one idiot. And I actually said to Nikki, I'm offended I didn't think of it first. Like that would have been killer. So it's just to be who you are, to be authentic, to like talk authentically about the things that you experience. Talk about like the cyber queens have had so many struggles learning how to go live and like transforming our platform and stuff. And we go live about that stuff and we tell people, listen, today bombed and here's the real on why. And people like that. It makes you relatable, like making your message, tell someone else if they're not perfect, so I don't have to be perfect. Like Maril didn't pass CEH her first 2 times. It took me 3. So, failure is okay. Like a lot of people see the success that a lot of folks have and go, oh, wow, I'm never going to be that good. How long did it take her to get that good? Like, how do I get all these opportunities? I will never be able to replicate that. And I'm like, oh, no, you absolutely can. I fucked up along the way so many times. Like, so that's really how you succeed is just to find something repeatable and authentic that you can maintain with very little of your effort. If you are constantly grasping for new things to say, then you've probably found the wrong message, the wrong content. And when people engage with you back and say, I was there, I can totally relate. That happened to me. That's a sweet place to be. You're going to have a much more engaged audience. And having a smaller, more engaged audience is much more rewarding than having a bigger, unengaged audience in the world of the social media platform. So I go back and make people unfollow me. I delete followers if you're not engaging with my content.
Smart.
Wow.
When you post in this podcast, whatever clickbait you want to use, whatever you want to say about Dummy, what he does in this episode, you have license to use it. Rostros.
You can use this photo for your clickbait.
Yeah. Ross has hair. He grew.
Yeah.
Rogaine.
I grew my hair real quick.
Sponsored by Rogan.
Yeah.
Sponsored by Rogaine. Yeah. No,
like
I mean,
unknowing sponsors for this episode.
Right. Yeah. No, it's always, we always tend to request for the invoice afterwards, and people just end up getting really confused on how we got their AP emails. But no, I know that you mentioned we have a short time and we want to be cognizant of your time. So we usually like to close out these little fun little podcasts with a random question of the day. They have nothing to do with cyber typically, and more just entertaining. And as we were sitting here, I thought, what a great question it would be if you could be any dinosaur. What dinosaur would you be? Who wants to start us off?
Someone else, because I got to Google mine. I don't know what it's called. I know what it is, but not what it's called. So someone else start us off.
So I can start us off. So I'm already an idiot, right? So I would prefer to be like a T-Rex, because then I could be an idiot with small arms and have an excuse for why I can't lift well. So I just feel like that'd be pretty sweet. I probably wouldn't live long as a T-Rex, but let's be honest here, like you're pretty tall. So I'd be able to be a baller, right? I was a little bit taller, but that is what it is. Bobby, what you got?
I'm gonna go with Triceratops. Very low to the ground, low center of gravity, breaks things with its horns. I'm gonna go with that one.
You took not only my dinosaur, but my reasoning too. It was literally a Triceratops because it's low to the ground.
Identify as Triceratops.
I was racking my brain through the 2 dinosaurs that I know, which are T-Rex and Triceratops.
Yeah, I'll give you that one.
You could be a pterodactyl.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, I could take pterodactyl. I like to fly. So Ross, take it away.
So I would love to be a Triceratops because they're low to the ground and sturdy and reliable. That's what I would pick.
Okay.
What a fascinating insight that was, Ross.
So I come at it from a completely pragmatic point of view. I would want to be the thing that has the best chance of survival in the most situations. So I would either go very small with like that super teeny tiny version of the Velociraptor running around in the Jurassic Park movies, which is the name I was trying to Google that I can't find, or the pterosaur, which is very close to the pterodactyl. But the pterosaur is a flying dinosaur, but it could also dive. So I just want to know that, like, if I was walking on the ground and a T-Rex came out of nowhere, I could just take off. Or if I was in the air and there's pterodactyl trying to get at me, I could dive into the water for a moment and come back out. So yeah, that's what I would pick because that gives me the best chance of survival.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to live long back then. There's no TV or computer games, so
no Windows 7.
Yeah, there's no Windows 7 in the prehistoric age. Actually, you don't know. Maybe there was.
Remember Ducky from Land Before Time?
Yeah.
Ducky. I want to be whatever Ducky was. I changed my mind.
And Spike, Ducky, and Spike.
Yeah.
I felt my brilliant insight about the low center of gravity.
Yeah, but then I thought of Ducky.
Motherfucking tree stars.
I want to be a Ducky, yeah.
Yeah, what? Now I'm like Googling it.
Parasaurolophus.
Yeah, I want to be a Parasaurolophus. That's life.
That's the new handle. We've replaced OJ the Clean Boy with something no one can pronounce.
Here's even better though. As a side note before we leave, this is disputed. It might not even be a Parasaurolophus, whatever it is. The fans dispute between 3 different species. So I can close that off.
Land Before Time wiki.
Yeah, I pulled up fandom.
Land Before Time theories.
They're like, you widely criticized by fans for being maybe 3 different species. Like, all I care about is the tree stars, dude. But anyways, Maril, it was a pleasure having you on. We do appreciate the time you took to talk to us today. It was a ton of fun. I don't think we got through half of what we were wanting to ask you, but that seems to be like,
we're so great at that. We come up with like 30 questions we want to ask this like brilliant guest, and then we get through one, then we do our cyber idiocy, and then the hour is over.
That's what you need to change it to. Lead question, cyber idiocy ensues.
Yeah, right.
What's the plan today? Cyber idiocy will happen. Shenanigans.
We'll have to have you come back on and talk about all your nonprofit work and just many more questions to dive into.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I felt like all my co-hosts and my co-founders are going to kill me. They're like, you didn't talk about that at all. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry.
We'll put it in. We'll put it in the description. It's in the description.
Okay. All right.
I'll come back anytime. Thank you for having me so much. It was a lot of fun. I only have smiled this much on a podcast in a long, long time.
And Maril, if you have any fun guests you think would be good on the pod, Nikki led to you. So if you want to lead us to the next person, we're always looking at
next nugget of brilliance. Yeah,
Terry Crews. Yeah, if you know Terry Crews, that'd be preferred too.
Okay, I don't. But I mean,
Let's have one of your Beyonce, Mac Beyonce.
Oh, one of my Beyoncés?
Yeah.
Listen, Beyonce's very busy, but I'll have my people get with their people. See if the Beyoncés are available.
Are we going to clap?
Thanks again. Yeah, and we have to end this with a clap. This is basically so that we can get the audio right, but it doesn't really
sound like a happy birthday clap, or like you
no, it's just like a single, like the clapper thing where you're like, one,
okay.
Yeah, so yeah, we'll see if we can get this on par. So we'll go on go.
I already stopped recording.
Well, we go 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, clap.
Okay, right. 3, 2, 1, clap. Yeah, so we're about we're good. Editor will make it.